Talking of foreigners, Erol Morkoc is here from Republicans Overseas to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. Erol, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Not bad. So come on, tell us, who is winning out of Trump and Kamala?
Well, right now, if you're looking at the Electoral College, I'm going to go with the Nate Silver approach. And right now, Trump is winning. He's winning like 52 to 48 in terms of odds-on favorite to win the Electoral College. Why? Because Kamala Harris went and gave a disastrous interview. I mean, her side, of course, is propping her up as something good. But she went in there, she fluffed every question. She had Waltz with her, and immediately after that, the polls started moving, as well as the betting market. So she had been in the pole position going into that interview with Dana Bash at CNN. But after that, right now, Donald Trump's back in the commanding lead as far as the Electoral College. The popular vote is irrelevant in the United States. I'm sure your viewers know that, but it's important to keep that in mind because Kamala will win the popular vote almost guaranteed with the mass populations of California and whatnot. So it looks good for Trump. He's in the lead, and I think we're going to keep this going towards the finish line. But
so I'll tell you what we'll do, Errol. Tell you what we'll do. We'll make it really, really simple for people to understand the Electoral College because it is really easy. Very simple. When the system was created, you got, what was it, 3 people automatically, which originally were the governors and the senators, or at least that's what they thought they were going to do. And then, so every state has 1 governor, every state has 2 senators, and then that Congress has a number of congressmen based on the population. So your Electoral College will be the number of congressmen plus 3. And that is in order to prevent what happened with Hillary Clinton, which is somebody who is loathed across the country, but in 1 or 2 very populous states is incredibly popular.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to highlight also that it number one thing it does is protect the minority vote. Correct. There would not be such thing as a minority vote, like a black vote or a Hispanic vote or whatever. They wouldn't exist. So it's a way to make sure that we're not governed by mob rule, the tyranny of the majority, I think is what the founding fathers called.
So what they said was, they said that they wanted to have Congress to represent the people, the Senate to represent the state, and then they wanted to have an Electoral College to arbitrate between the 2 to decide who's president.
Yeah, absolutely. And for, a few hundred years so far, it's been successful. So let's hope it continues. It's been in the Republican favor, by the way. We've won almost all of the elections with the Electoral College, not the popular vote.
Yes.
We don't seem to win the masses. We seem to win the people who actually do their research, and that's not everybody.
Well, I think what's really important about it is this. If you're talking about, if you are a voter in Idaho or something like that, then it's, and you've got your issues that your state is worried about at a national level, you will be swamped by California and Florida and New York and places like that. And I think it's really important when you understand what America was founded to do, or rather the American Republic was founded to do, which was to be an overarching body over states that effectively ran themselves, then this idea that you cannot just only win California, Florida, and a couple of others and then command the country.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if every state went 52-48 for the Republicans, and then California and New York went 60-40 for the Democrats, they would win the popular vote. Yep. That's how populous those 2 states are. So it's really important to understand our political system has that checks and balances, and that's where Trump's path to victory comes from. It comes from that Electoral College. It comes from respecting the rights of states in the Midwest and states in all sorts in the South, everywhere. It isn't just that
what the Democrats like to call the flyover states, the ones that you fly over when you go from the West Coast to the East Coast. Disparagingly called.
They have tons of contempt. They'll even point out that there's so much space there, and they'll use that as an explanation for why unlimited, unchecked, unfettered immigration into the United States should happen. They're flying in 40,000 Venezuelans every week. By the way, this is not a conspiracy. This is a fact by our government. And what are they doing? They're putting them all around America because that's how they see America, space to be filled rather than a place to protect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing, actually, because I remember Steve Bannon saying this idea that we're an immigrant society. And actually what Bannon said is, no, in reality, what made the United States of America successful is the Constitution and the system of the United States of America. And actually, what America proves is you can take the waifs and strays of Europe, his words, not mine, and you can make a country a success if you give these people the freedom to do what they want to do. But actually, he says what the Democrats want to do is to crush that freedom, because they believe that simply anyone who's an immigrant from anywhere is superior to the culture they arrive in.
Oh, that's definitely their perspective. And keep in mind, when we had the great immigration waves, they were coming into a country going through the Industrial Revolution that needed all of this labor. Now you have a country that's going into automation and AI, and the idea that bringing people over and putting them onto the welfare system is going to help America. Who's that going to hurt? The poorest Americans. The open border, who does that hurt? The lowest level on the labor quotient, people who are battling for those lower wages. So not only do they have to test for the country in general, but they have to test for the very people who they should be protecting, because that's who this behavior is hurting, and it's a shame to see it. And without Trump coming back in 2024, I think it's just going to get worse. I really do.
How worried are you about the future of the United States of America?
Actually terrified. I mean, it's a coin flip right now between this country going in a direction that I can at least recognize and be positive in, and the country going in a direction where people definitely need to think about laminating their land deeds and making sure they have a way to get somewhere else. If things start to go as Comrade Kamala runs it with price fixing and whatnot, the internal systems will collapse. Right now, the country is effectively broke. 76% of federal income tax last month went to pay the interest on the debt they're borrowing. So they're broke, and they're continuing to push these crazy policies. And if this continues, I think we're going to lose the country. I really do believe that this election is the most important election in the 21st century by far.
I have to say, I'll go further than that. And people can disagree with me on this, but what worries me is, look, Donald Trump turns around and says that he can end a war with one phone call. And he's definitely right. An American president can end a war with one phone call. It's not because of Donald Trump. Certainly not because of Joe Biden. It's because of trillions of dollars of investment in military equipment. What happened in Afghanistan is that Joe Biden showed himself to be somebody who was unwilling to use those weapons. Now, you can have nuclear submarines, as many as you want, but if your enemies know you'll never push the button, whatever they do, they're a waste of money. Donald Trump effectively weaponizes the weaponizing, if you like. And I think that if Donald Trump is not elected this time, I think the slide towards World War III is turbocharged, because I think that America and the West will sit back and let the bad guys do what they want.
And you have to wonder, is it in the interest of this administration, current administration, to do that? Is there a situation where the actual, lifetime industrial war complex is the only thing that America is going to represent? Because right now, if that goes forward, that's our sort of hallmark on the last 50 years, is just global wars. If we continue with this sort of approach where we don't, look for peace, we don't talk to our adversaries, and all we do is just they use awful terms like, oh, we're gumming up the Russian war machine with bodies. Like, those are human beings. There's no concept on the left anymore of anti-war or anything. And then that starts to be terrifying, horrifying, mortifying when the people who used to be anti-war are pro-war. I really don't think there's any way forward in a country that's pushing that ideology, because it's going to go to World War III, and that's going to be a nuclear war. I think Einstein said the Fourth World War will be fought with sticks and stones, because the third one will be nuclear weapons, and that's a terrifying thought.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that it's difficult. I mean, I personally think that Donald Trump will end the Ukrainian war within I don't think he'll even have taken the oath by the time he ends the Ukrainian war. And I think what he'll do, and there's no doubt that Ukraine are worried about this, and I think Russia don't like what he's going to do, but he'll do it anyway. He'll draw the line. He'll say, you're never going to take back Crimea, you're never going to take back Luhansk and Donbass. And actually, in a sense, I don't want you to, because they're Russian-speaking areas. What we'll do is we will draw the line, but we'll give you what you actually want, which is we'll approve EU and NATO membership for what's left of Ukraine. And actually, what's left of Ukraine will be Ukrainian speakers only, and a country that is much more viable than what happens at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that analysis. I think something along that kind of a trade would be how Donald Trump would do this. I don't know if it would be EU membership or if it would be NATO membership or, guarantees of rebuilding. Obviously, there'd have to be a security guarantee there, but definitely something.
I think the reason why I say EU and NATO is not because I believe Donald Trump will like those two propositions. I think they're the only ones acceptable to rump Ukraine.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I can definitely see it. And they're never going to take back Crimea. They're never going to take back the Donbass, and especially at this rate. And the loss of life, an entire generation wiped out. I mean, and for what? To do something that they could have done in the beginning if they had Donald Trump as the president who would have pushed for peace initially, or we had these war hawks in there who effectively have created a world tragedy as far as loss of life. So if Donald Trump can go in there and make any deal with them, I think the world will be thankful, not just America.
Without a doubt. And I think also there is one thing that Zelensky has done, which I think is sensible, is to invade the Ukrainian-speaking bits of Russia, because I think that muddies this question of where the border is, because obviously people like you and I will always turn around and say, well, render unto Caesar that is Caesar's. Putin should not have invaded. But at the same time, the idea that these Russian-speaking areas now will go back to being Ukraine is for the birds. I apologise if that means that that Vladimir Putin won in that sense. But I think also there is a debate about the Ukrainian-speaking areas of Russia, and the big issue of them all with Putin is that he's not interested in actually the Russian people. He's interested in how much money he can half-inch, and his oligarchs and dodgy mates will not be allowed to run Kiev.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that, and I think that the thrust into Russia has been entirely done for that negotiating chip, because if Trump's elected, that peace deal is coming quickly, and if Kamala is elected, then I think they're going to try to push that down the line, maybe a year or two. They don't care how many people die.
There will be no peace deal with Kamala. Anyway, Erol Morkoc, thank you so much. He's a spokesman for Republican overseas.